Hi, I'm Dr. Stan Steindl. Welcome to Compassion in a T-shirt, in session with Elli Tholouli. Elli is a psychologist in Athens, Greece, where she specializes in compassion-focused therapy and compassionate mind training. She has established the Compassion Center and works tirelessly to create opportunities for people to have exposure to compassion-focused therapy and for health professionals to receive training in CFT. She has a heart of gold and a warmth and gentleness that is very, very special. I do hope you enjoy being in session with my friend Elli Tholouli. Good. Well, welcome, Elli Tholouli. Thank you so much for coming online and coming on to Compassion in a T-shirt in session. I know you must be during your busy day, and yes, I can see the lovely message there. I wish I had one too, actually, but yes, that's very nice. How are you feeling today?
I am feeling well. I have a mixture of feelings of the opportunity and excitement and some relaxation, and to talk with you after so long that we haven't met from the Compassionate Mind Foundation.
And yeah, I think several years ago now, you actually interviewed me.
Yes.
And
I didn't have anxiety then.
No, that's right. It was a big time in your life, if I remember.
Just a few days, I had stopped work because I was pregnant and I was about to give birth. And I thought, I had the excitement, I guess, and maybe some grief of stopping my work for a while. But I thought, I can, it was a power and a strength and emotion going forward. And I really enjoyed talking with you. That was I wanted to do that with other colleagues as well, to learn more about what they feel passionate about compassion-focused therapy, and it was really, really good.
Yes, it was. You were sort of doing incredible stuff, and I remember that the birth was just a few days away, and then that all happened, and it was very, very exciting. So it's fun to get the chance to sort of listen this time maybe and hear more about you and what you're doing in and around compassion and compassion focused therapy, I guess. But I suppose where I was going to sort of start was just to ask you maybe to sort of talk a little bit about yourself and who you are and perhaps your work or kind of your life, and maybe even what is inspiring you or exciting you at the moment. So yeah, tell us a bit about your story.
So I am Greek. I always lived in Greece until I went to school here, and I'm a mother of 2 children, and I am working here in Greece as a psychologist for the past 15 years. I have studied in England fine art and psychology. So there is an artist part in me and performer, which I, maybe in the future I will connect with it again. And I have been working in private practice and also at Harokopia University in Athens, where I have been teaching workshops in cultivating compassion for educators as part of an MA that they have there in education and culture. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And apart from my work as a therapist, I like joining groups in my community, as in sports and dancing clubs, and another like a spiritual community I belong to. And we try to promote or cultivate compassionate ideas and I'm passionate about that, and
Mm,
I enjoy being part of it.
mm. It's a wide-ranging kind of sort of collection of things that really you've done and you do. You had that. I didn't know the fine art part of you actually.
Hmm.
Um, Tell us more about the fine arts and your experiences with all of that.
So, because I wanted to study abroad, I really like writing, but I thought I wouldn't be able to write or, um, you know, learn literature in England. So I thought maybe art would be an equivalent or an alternative. So
Mm,
I went into fine art. At Reading University, where I studied, they offered that opportunity to have a joint degree with psychology.
right.
And it was really, I think I've learned a lot that helped me in therapy through painting and reflecting on what I do and the history of art that can inform us,
Mm,
the situations, financial and cultural context of painting.
mm,
And yes, or being mindful of the process of an artwork is
mm.
also, I can feel how it inspires me and makes me understand better the process of therapy.
Oh, yeah.
So, but I wasn't very good at marketing. And when I graduated, I ended up having lots of paintings in the house that I couldn't sell.
Ah, right.
So I stopped doing that as a profession
Uh-huh.
and concentrated on becoming a therapist.
The creativity and the sort of the process of creativity and reflecting on all of that, it really sort of informed your experience as well a human being, but also ultimately a therapist. And you mentioned too the community groups and so on. Can you what's the details with that? What do you get involved with there?
So when I was in England and I was studying, I had met through my parents a person who was then around 90 years old, and he was a spiritual father and helper to others. And in that community of people, there was a lot of like a psalm singing and contemplation, meditative contemplation with from the Orthodox religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I was involved in that, and also my own interests in sports and arts. I I like bringing and talking with other athletes and artists about self-compassion, because being a performer is very demanding, competitive. People feel a lot of stress and
Mm,
self-criticism,
mm,
and they might not really enjoy, you know, so much,
mm,
or they can't get so much joy from it.
mm.
And I really like, making small groups and bringing these self-compassion ideas to them and
Mm.
sharing with them.
Yeah, I mean that I get the sense that you're really sort of spreading the news there and helping people who you're right. I mean that can be that sort of especially elite sport or sort of performers or artists, there can be that sort of that just that self-criticism that just is always there niggling away kind of. On the one hand, we think it makes us better, but on the other hand, it just chips away at things like confidence or motivation, and then we come in with perfectionism and all of that.
It's not only about, individual fault that people get engaged in perfectionism and self criticism. It's our own. It's the society as well is encouraging that. We
Yeah.
want them to be elite, to be always better, to do
Mm,
extraordinary things, to push their bodies. So it's not really. It's an interaction between the athlete and the industry and us as viewers. So it's not only about them who are not navigating this environment healthily. It has to do with that. So I wish maybe one day we might experience different attitudes in those areas that are less demanding and unhealthy.
I was actually reading some stuff recently on perfectionism, and they talk about perfectionism having kind of three directions. You know, that we might have perfectionism that we expect of ourselves. We might receive that sense of demand upon us to be perfect from others, and we might also put that demand onto others that they should be perfect. And of course, I'm sure you kind of know, you know, that's it. Just amazed me how that mirrors onto what we think of as the three flows of compassion as well, that actually we have those three flows of compassion. But like you said, you know, perfectionism can sort of flow back and forth as well, and you know, some of the stuff that gets screamed from the sidelines, you know, at athletes or something like that. So much pressure and demand gets put upon them, and you know that they can't help maybe internalize some of that as well. Great point.
Yes, the three flows are not so the three systems. Like perfectionism could be drive driven, you know, to find enthusiasm and make something better, or to be more caring, so to become better and so that you care for others. But also it can be threat based.
That's a really I'll sort of think about that a bit more, because yeah, I think that's true. Compassion can be textured with different emotions or emotional systems being activated too, and so can perfectionism actually. You know, it can be you know, sort of associated or related with each of those three systems as well. This has become a little kind of interest for you, this area of compassion, of perfectionism, and then bringing kind of some of the CFT to that.
Yes, both personally, because I was very competitive as a young person in sports and studying, and my parents were very different to that. They didn't like competition. They didn't care about grades. So I was in a between of two different worlds, and so I'm trying to not lose the you know, becoming a better at something to succeed, but also, you know, not that fueling self-criticism and sapping you from joy and enjoyment.
Okay, so there's some really just your own personal experience there kind of planted the seed of how to work with you know, the self-improvement piece without that element that where we attack ourselves or kind of create this ideal that we only ever, you know, sort of fail to meet. You know, that you know what it feels like to, you know, drift into all of that. And so tell us a bit about you and compassion then, and yeah, how you discovered some of that.
So, okay, as a teenager, I wanted to change the world, and I was passionate about this. My parents were in helping professions. My mother was a teacher, and my father is a physician. And so I was inspired about how to help people with psychological difficulties that maybe were giving some health issues as well. And so I went to study psychology. And during that time, I was, like I said, I had met that person who inspired me a lot with my spiritual father. And so I returned back to Greece to spend some time with him because I thought he was at his last days, and learned. I'm still learning when I remember how he was expressing and embodying compassion and playfulness to
Mm.
others. It was
Mm.
many, we can have many sessions for that if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
And so, uh, uh, so he died, like I
Mm.
say, suddenly at the age of over 100 years old.
Okay.
And yes, because he lived another 10 years. I thought it was only, I only had a few days with him. So it was a great privilege for me to spend all these years next to this person and seeing the flow between each other and from him to other people.
Mm.
And so when he passed away, it was quite sudden, like I say. I
Mm.
was in grief, it's
Mm.
normal. And but I had a lot of pain. It was physical body pain of the grief.
Mm.
And time went on. I continued working, and one day I felt, oh, why am I waking up and I don't have a good mood?
Mm.
What's wrong with me?
Mm.
Come on, Ellie, you have to be in a good mood. You're going to the office now. You have to
Mm.
help people.
Mm.
How are you going to help them if you are in low mood? And then I had a revelation. Also, at that time, I was helping a new client with depression, and I started reading Paul Gilbert's book on counseling and therapy for depression, where it has he's bringing there the compassion part
Yes.
and self-criticism. So all of a sudden, I had this revelation of what am I critical to my sorrow, sadness, or low mood? Just a few months ago, I had a major loss. I lost a very important person in my life.
Mm.
Why I shouldn't be in low mood? Of course I can be in as much as the lowest mood as I want to. I can indulge in this.
Mm.
And so one part was then I gave myself permission to be with my friends and other people who also feel the same way, and to care for that compassionately. But also it made a shift on how I saw people's problems up till then, that people who came into therapy, they actually suffered from two things. One was the condition, maybe panic attack or anxiety or a loss, and the other was criticism, how they were critical of themselves about it. And that
Mm.
really sometimes created the problem in the first place, or it didn't help them to seek help to up until they would come to feel supported, to be supportive of themselves. It was a battle, an inner battle. So that helped me to just really understand how compassion can be helpful
Mm.
and experience it for myself.
Mm.
And so it clicked in, and I discovered, and I went to England to do trainings in CFT and supervision, and it's still going. The
Yeah.
road is ahead.
Yes. Yes. No, I think that's very, very insightful that there you were grieving, this very important person who had taught you so much. And in fact, even today, you can reflect on conversations with him and learn more. The lessons keep coming by the sounds of it from him. And he passed away, and you were grieving, and yet there was this sort of this other part of you, this second piece that was then coming in with yeah, I guess it was self-criticism and just um not sort of not really validating, or sort of not really accepting, or not really allowing your natural feelings, that grief was a very natural and in fact important experience, wasn't it, in that instance. And yet this other part of the mind, for whatever reason, feels that need to criticize.
Yes, and there is a hidden motivation to be caring in that criticism, because in fact, I wanted to be helpful to others. So I felt the pain was not could create difficulties in that, which
Yes.
actually did. And also it's the environment, how I know that only 2 days a person can grieve, can take off work, in Greece at least, when they lose a parent, for example. So
Right.
how does the environment actually validate and recognize that you're going to be, the next few months are going to be tough for you?
Yeah.
The environment can't say that.
It's actually, yeah, it's what you were saying before too about the perfectionism. It really, isn't it, is that we have our own inner kind of struggle with these things, but there are external, pressures and demands and what society expects of us and so on. And in some ways that happens with grief as well. And we can't help but take that on board and feel like we're doing it wrong, or we should be over it, or I should be focusing on helping others. That's my job, blah, blah, blah. And yes, it actually ends up just creating more suffering. The compassion piece was about, I guess, validation and um, self-forgiveness and permission to experience what you were going to experience, and the that lived experience for you actually meant that you could become more helpful with your clients in the end, because you got it, you understood that piece and communicate it from there. You've done quite a lot of training, and you've been to the workshops and obviously the Compassionate Mind Foundation conferences where we've seen each other and so on. And so how do you use compassion focused therapy in your work? Like what are some of the things that you do there, as a therapist maybe, or perhaps in other areas in your teaching or training or other things? Yeah, tell us a bit about how it comes into your work.
I am a simple mind. I have a simple mind. So I feel that when people feel secure, many of the difficulties ease away. And so we're trying to create that secure base in the therapy room, where the people can just feel safe to think and share with me the thoughts and problems and difficulties. And very often when this happens, many of the difficulties ease away, and then we can even address them playfully, to experiment. And even failure is not a failure anymore. I usually I see people with anxiety, difficulties, and depression and relation problems, and attachment issues, and I work long term, where I see that therapeutic relationship helping with the attachment, feeling more securely attached. Also, I can see how the strength part, the courage part of compassion can help exposure therapy, to address difficulties with avoidance of things that are meaningful to people, and suffer and lack. They can't enjoy them because of the avoidance. And so we use that, the soothing part, the caring motivation, the building strength, and through compassionate mind training, which I do in therapy with clients, but also I also do that in groups. And in this way, when people begin to cultivate their compassionate self, this makes it easier for me because we have another therapist in the room.
Mm.
You know?
No, that's a really lovely way to think about it and kind of to describe it. That the therapeutic relationship begins with the therapist creating a safe and secure space for the client, and the warmth and the care for well-being, sort of starts with the relationship, and then as you progress, you're starting to cultivate that in the person themselves, and your strength and courage kind of weaves in there as well, and before you know it, yes, there's another therapist in the room, kind of thing. The compassionate self is like one's own internal therapist sometimes. It can be a way of thinking about it. Now there's a couple of us, doing the therapy work.
Mm. Or a team, yes.
We're a team. And the thing that's lovely about that too is that, as you know, the soothing affiliative system, there's the affiliative component that is really being enacted there between, therapist and client, and creating that sense of team and working together. I remember you presenting on, I think it was blood injury phobia or needle phobia.
Mm.
And some of the role there of the compassionate self and exposure therapy. The thing that I love about CFT is it's compassion focused therapy, so you can bring a compassion focus to the other things that we might do. Can you sort of describe a little bit there, like how do you incorporate those two?
It's also the psychoeducation, which helps for the person to understand that the tricky brain and the tricky body, it's not our fault that it works this way, and so we don't have to feel ashamed for it. It's just how we are built, and that is it's helpful to design and experiment. And I really don't like therapy to be harsh and cruel with exposure and flooding. It can be okay, and it can be also caring. I'm doing this to care for myself. It might not feel good, but maybe, together it could feel okay. And also, I'm trying to help people to connect with their caring part. That I'm the caring motivation. I want to try this because it's going to help me, or help me to be with others, rather than I need to get rid of my phobia. I need to get rid of my anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It's wrong. It shouldn't be there. And also the positive emotions. We can be creative in how to do the exposure. It can be a performance, let's say. Sometimes, yes. And so that is one way. We use the qualities of curiosity and wisdom of the compassionate self, the courage, that it doesn't have to be there. It's just I'm going to try this out, and if it doesn't work, I can get support, and I can from others, and I can try again. It doesn't have to happen at once. So there is a rehearsal part, rehearsing as we learn language, or to cook, to paint, whatever.
Yeah, I so agree. Some elements of therapy are still rather harsh, aren't they? Or sort of, painful. Exposure, can be a very scary process. And yet if we couple that with sort of the warmth and the care and and that sense of um, doing it to sort of get somewhere rather than necessarily get away from something, that idea of it helping us to sort of grow and even flourish, that's the motivation then behind doing these really what can be very difficult sort of exercises with exposure,
Mm,
and that idea of really in service of one's own well-being and bringing in to that wisdom and strength, but also curiosity and playfulness even, and all of
mm,
that can really help to create sort of a whole different experience of something like exposure therapy. In fact, just today I was speaking to someone about their absolute dread around going and seeing the dentist, but they have decided to do it. And he said, I can't stand the idea of going to the dentist, but I'm going to do it because basically I know it is sort of good for me. It's not, doesn't really feel good, so to speak, but it really feels good for me. And that's that's self-compassion in a sense, isn't it? Is that
mm.
sense of really trying to work out what is really going to be in my best interests and in service of my well-being.
Sometimes we can tolerate two different feelings, like the fear of exposing myself to something difficult, and also actually it was also fun. It was exciting. It was
Yeah.
energizing, and we we have both. We can have
Yes.
both feelings, both emotions.
Those two are physiologically very close cousins, aren't they? Anxiety and excitement, in a way.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
they sometimes have certain elements that feel very similarly, but sometimes just the little shift in perspective or shift in or reframe, and suddenly something that feels very challenging and scary to do can have this little piece of excitement that enters the fray, and now we're feeling two things, like you say. I think, yeah, that's very, very interesting how you describe it like that. So what have you noticed in terms of how people take on board some of these ideas, the ideas of compassion or self-compassion? Do you notice any challenges there, or anything that people sort of push back with?
I don't understand compassion. I don't know what it's like. I can't grasp it. I don't really feel it. I can't feel it. So um, it's naive to say that everyone has this experience or had this experience of receiving compassion, unfortunately, so that
Yeah.
we just have to recall it, or just instruct the person to be compassionate to themselves. And yes, one of the difficulties that people don't have a past experience to draw from. So we
Mm,
need to create, to develop it maybe, and from the scratch, with
mm,
from the relationship, bit by bit, or even by what would you need, what would be more helpful. And sometimes people think that their self-critic is the compassionate one who is helping them to be protected.
mm,
And but now I see that not as an obstacle to compassion. Those fears and blocks, they are actually the reason why we are doing therapy. They're these parts blocking receiving compassion or expressing compassion are hurt ones, parts that have been hurted and are protecting the person. So I'm using more of a dialogue between those parts and to actually listen to them, try to tolerate and to observe them rather than ask what they are thinking, how they are feeling, making chair work ways, and they they have a voice that gives us some insight about the worries and the fears that these parts have, how they have been created, and we are trying to work with maybe negotiating sometimes. Can you step back a little bit and try and see? Let's experiment. Can you allow us, the compassionate self, to see what this can do, how they can help Ellie or the person, and also what do they need? What would that block need? And also I'm trying to see that this block can't really go away because the person might feel afraid. It's part of their identity and how they know the world.
I think that yeah, you make some really invaluable points there. I mean, one of the ones that really stood out is actually these aren't so much obstacles anymore, are they? But rather opportunities in a way. That this is the work, in a sense. This is the work that we might do in CFT because, like you said, like some people just literally haven't experienced it. How do we learn how to be how to be soothed? It's by being soothed by others, and if that is not there or hasn't been experienced, then that becomes a block, and people will say, I almost can't even comprehend what you're saying there about compassion. And so that's just such important feedback to then be worked through and discussed, and like your approach is then the therapeutic relationship itself becomes the experience, becomes perhaps sometimes the first experience for someone to know what it's like to be validated and valued and listened to and understood and perhaps even supported or helped in some way. And this suddenly that's this very rich experience. And then the other thing that you said really that stood out is that often these fears, blocks, and resistances are coming from a place of threat protection. That's the motive behind them, is that they are trying to protect the person from threats. What if I let you care for me and then you just hurt me? So yes, there's that real threat protection piece. And so, starting to really honor those parts and explore them and understanding those parts of the person, kind of really starts to help build a very clear picture for themselves of what is it that I really need right now? What is it that would be most helpful?
People's experiences are not their fault.
Yeah.
If we see, the social problem, where the environments, it's just a way of adapting to harsh and difficult environment. For me, sometimes I feel disappointed that therapy can't do everything, because people have to be heroic as well in order to become better, to be assertive in those environments. Nobody asks us, but many people who suffer, it's because of the experiences, and they need to, unfortunately, also be revolutionaries in a way to those places and team up with others.
Yeah, I think one of the things that has really sort of impressed upon me in our conversation today is just that reminder that you offer of seeing the person in context, and seeing the person in the context of others in their lives, or the society more generally. And I really appreciate you sort of reconnecting me with that, because it depends, doesn't it? On all of that too. Where are they returning home to? Who is there? What are the sorts of experiencing they're facing? Kind of in the here and now. I often think about past experiences and how that may have shaped the person, but actually experiences are happening all the time, and so if they're returning home and there's sort of continuing difficulties unfolding there, it takes a lot of strength and courage and heroism, as you say, to really make a change. Assertiveness or something like that is all very well to say, in a word or whatever, but it's pretty tricky to do, and it is a heroic kind of an act. So what are some of the things that you've really loved about CFT, I guess, like in some of the successes maybe, or the triumphs, the things that really, the outcomes that you've witnessed there?
No, I love everything in CFT, and
Yeah, me too.
I love that it's not one thing, that it develops and helps me, it allows me to learn again and more things, and I know we will learn more in the future, because it's not set and doesn't have set techniques, and it's always developing. So I actually think that the conceptualization is also therapeutic. It's a therapeutic tool. So I really enjoy when people, after we share psychoeducation parts about our brain and the three systems, and then they might say, "Oh, Ellie, did you say I'm normal?" That my experiences are okay, are normal. It's part of how we are supposed to be. I also enjoy when compassion makes people to get closer to their dark side, and actually they might not be in the office to talk about some of the harm or cruel things that they have also caused to others. It was the first reason they came was about a panic attack or something else. I enjoy when people reflect that as they're cultivating their compassionate self. For example, one person who is into martial arts and was telling me that, oh, I can see that I don't like seeing people being cruel to animals. I'm not going to become a vegetarian, but I feel closer to animals and nature as I was building my compassionate self. Or yes, or another person was also in the army and told me that if I had been raised in a different family, he had very right, extreme political views. He said, I wouldn't be a racist, I don't think. Wow. So I like how there is a room for curiosity and doubt in people's minds with through building this part of themselves and experiencing therapy.
Yeah.
And their ability to ask for help, support from others. Shall I go on?
Well, I mean, I'm jotting them down. I mean, there's so much to kind of love about it, and you and I are the same on that front. I mean, I feel exactly the same way. I mean, you've described it beautifully. The ability to be a part of an approach that is sort of dynamic and developing, and Paul Gilbert is amazing how he will bring in new pieces to all of that, and I agree with you that there's really a sense of always learning, and that moment where people say, I am normal. It's not my fault. Those are just spine-tingling moments, aren't they? That because so much of the blame and shame just starts to sort of soften in that moment. The bit about the dark side, I love that, that idea of really helping people, because compassion isn't really just about, things that we're not just compassionate for people that we love. It might be our enemies that we practice compassion with, and it might be the enemy within, in a sense, that the bits of ourselves that we really don't like, or we hate or loathe, or feel terrible about, and that being able to help people to approach all that, these insights that they can have in amongst
Mm.
that, and yeah, what would have happened if you'd grown up in the house next door to where you were born? Not your house, but just one door, across. And people can often think, well, actually, in that house, I might have been this different version of myself.
Mm.
And support for others, and yeah, I mean, we could absolutely go on. I mean, there's many wonderful things about it. What about in your own life? What do you find yourself sort of inspired around being compassionate? Do you find that you have yourself been able to cultivate this more of that self-compassion bit? What's been the kind of the impact in your own personal life?
I think I have more friends since I am more compassionate, or I'm developing that part.
Ah,
And yes, I mean, I'm enjoying friendships and relationships so much better. And I
ah,
think people, I, um, I also dare to do things that I wouldn't, because I would be ashamed and scared to do,
yeah,
in a more playful way.
yeah,
So I have more experiences that I like.
yeah.
I can tolerate being a parent and thinking, oh, I'm not, I often think of my children talking to their therapist about what their mother did to them growing up. And I can tolerate that better, helping, being more helpful, and
Yeah.
uh, with parenting. And also, what I really strikes me out is my ability now to mentalize better. So, for example, when I first started working as a therapist, I found it difficult to help people with Socratic questioning and help them to bring an alternative thinking, because I was so enmeshed in their threat. And since I started developing compassion for myself and others, I find that going much more easier and soothing.
Mm,
The questions are there because I'm not in the threat mode.
mm,
So
mm, mm,
also, I really enjoy when some of my clients give me the opportunity that I had when I first started my practice, that they come back and I'm different, and I can see how I understand totally in a totally different way their experiences,
mm,
or they are able to share things that they didn't at first. And also I can tolerate, I have more room to listen to more pain now that
mm, mm,
we have the antidote of being compassionate. It
mm.
creates more room.
I think that the theme running through a lot of that is just the way that the compassion and the three flows just changes sort of relationships, doesn't it? It on a number of fronts, whether it be friends or family or kids or the people that we're working with. Compassion just, yeah, there's an expansiveness that really opens up, and we're able to be with people in a whole different way. And I think you made a really good point. It's a lot about our own ability now to sort of down regulate our own threat system as much as anything. That
Mm.
ability to just slow that down then means we can open up with compassion and kindness and love And the distress tolerance bit, is really key there. Compassion does help to teach us distress tolerance. I really, I've learned so much from you tonight, Ellie. I've got a number of things that I really want to think more about. I appreciate the way that you really have put a lot of thought into this stuff. I can see that you embody, the compassion in so many areas of your life. It's really quite inspiring. One of the things I've been asking people is the 3 tips question. So I guess the part of the idea of compassion in a t-shirt is, just to sort of give people things to think about or reflect upon in terms of their own compassionate journey. And so the question here is whether what might be sort of 3 little things, just 3 little things that you would say could be good.
Maybe I will borrow what I heard from, I think it was at the Compassionate Mind Foundation, a practice by Jordan. Who was it? I don't remember. That what you are feeling and thinking, many other people have felt and thought before. And how can I, what would be helpful for me or for the other, given that this is how I feel at the moment? What would be helpful? And if I don't know, maybe I can ask someone I trust. Or
that's really beautiful. Yeah. So what I'm going through, others go through too. There's common humanity. And what could I do in this moment to be helpful to myself or others? And if I can't quite come to the answer, perhaps I could ask. Perhaps I could sort of
ask someone.
Yeah. No, I think that's really that's perfect. Thank you, Ellie, for that those three tips. So, just before I let you go, where can people sort of be in touch with you? Especially people where you are, and I know that you are really helping to spread the news of CFT in Greece in particular, and through your business and other involvement there. So if people are interested in being in touch, how could they find you?
They can find me on my website. I have a website called compassioncenter.gr.
Okay.
And there they can find my social media, like CFT Athens in Facebook, and Elli Tholouli on Twitter. And yes, there I have some events that I organize, like compassionate mind training for therapists or the public. And I also have been running a CFT peer support and supervision group that is open for CFT interested therapists. It's free to attend. So if anyone of our listeners are interested in that, it's really valuable for me and for others. And they can contact me there. But also on my email, they can contact me. And the groups are actually done now online, and they are in English because we have colleagues from all over Europe who join them. Oh. So we were able to speak in English and do that.
So yes, the whole world has really gone online now, hasn't it? And which has been a joy in some ways, like, for example, for me to get to talk to you. But also, lots of the CMT training and the peer support, and you've got a lot of that's available for everybody. Well, I'll put all of those in the little description below, and people can click on that to get to your website and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, well, Ellie, thank you very much for being willing to, sort of donate some of your time today to have a little conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting the chance to sort of spend a little bit of time with you again. We certainly haven't been able to catch up, have we, face to face for a little while now. So thank you very much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Stan. You gave me an opportunity to also think about those things that I enjoy and we enjoy.
Exactly. Beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.